On a cold May morning in 1536, Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, climbed the scaffold. Accused of treason, adultery, and even witchcraft, she was executed on the orders of her own husband, King Henry VIII. Her crime? Failing to produce a male heir. Henry wanted to erase her, to start fresh, to secure his dynasty with a son from a new wife. He believed he had one. But what if he was wrong? What if Anne Boleyn's ultimate revenge wasn't a ghostly haunting of the tower, but a meticulously slow-burning plan, written not in history books, but in blood? What if I told you that her family line, the very bloodline Henry tried to extinguish, is not only back but is now the undisputed future of the British throne? This is the story of how the blood of Anne Boleyn's family, carried through the veins of Princess Diana, has achieved the ultimate 500-year revenge. To understand the revenge, we must first understand the betrayal. Anne Boleyn was no ordinary woman. She was brilliant, charismatic, and fiercely ambitious. She captivated Henry VIII, the most powerful man in England, for nearly a decade, refusing to be his mistress and holding out for the crown. She promised him what his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, could not, a son and heir. For Anne, Henry broke with the Catholic Church, defied the Pope, and reshaped English history forever. He made her his queen, and in 1533, she gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. For Henry, this was a bitter disappointment. His obsession for a male heir was all-consuming. It was about more than just a son, it was about securing the Tudor dynasty, which was still relatively new and vulnerable. Subsequent pregnancies for Anne ended in miscarriages, including one of a male child. In Henry's paranoid and superstitious mind, this was a sign that God had cursed their marriage. His love turned to hate with terrifying speed. To get rid of Anne and marry Jane Seymour, he and his chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, concocted a series of shocking, and almost certainly false, charges against her. Within weeks, she went from Queen of England to a condemned prisoner in the Tower of London. As the French executioner's sword fell, Henry believed the Boleyn problem was solved. He had his daughter Elizabeth declared illegitimate and wiped his hands clean. But he made one critical mistake: he forgot about Anne's sister. Before we follow that forgotten line, it's worth noting that Anne had a brief, preliminary revenge through the daughter Henry cast aside. Elizabeth I, the illegitimate child, would go on to become one of England's greatest monarchs. Her 45-year reign, known as the Elizabethan era, was a golden age of exploration, art, and national pride. She defeated the Spanish Armada, sponsored Shakespeare, and established England as a major world power. She proved that Anne Boleyn's blood was more than worthy of the crown. In a spectacular irony, the daughter of the failed queen ruled with more strength and success than any of Henry's male heirs ever could. However, Elizabeth I was the virgin queen. She never married and had no children. With her death in 1603, the direct line of descent from Anne Boleyn ended. The Tudor dynasty, which Henry had fought so brutally to preserve, was over. The crown passed to the Stuarts of Scotland. It seemed that Anne's legacy, while glorious, was ultimately a dead end. But history, and bloodlines, have a funny way of winding through unexpected paths. The main story of this revenge doesn't lie with the queen who ruled, but with the family that survived. The key to this incredible 500-year story is Mary Boleyn. Often overshadowed by her brilliant and tragic sister, Mary was, for a time, the mistress of Henry VIII herself, long before he ever turned his attention to Anne. This affair produced at least one child, Catherine Carey, and possibly her son, Henry Carey. Historians have long debated whether these children were fathered by Mary's husband or by the king himself. If King Henry was their father, it adds an even more shocking layer of irony to this tale. Regardless of their paternity, these children carried Boleyn blood. While Anne's daughter, Elizabeth, sat on the throne, Mary's children were quietly integrated into the English court. They were, after all, the Queen's first cousins. Unlike their Aunt Anne, they survived the treacherous Tudor court by keeping their heads down. They didn't aim for the crown, they aimed for survival, and in doing so, they ensured the continuation of the Boleyn line. It is through this quiet, unassuming line, the line of the other Boleyn girl, that the seeds of a future dynasty were planted. Mary Boleyn's daughter, Catherine Carey, became a lady-in-waiting to her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. She married into the respectable Knowles family. Her descendants, in turn, married into other powerful and influential aristocratic families. Over the next few centuries, the Boleyn blood, once the source of scandal and execution, spread quietly and respectably throughout the English nobility. While the name Boleyn faded from prominence, its DNA was being woven into the very fabric of the British aristocracy. Generation after generation, the descendants of Mary Boleyn solidified their status. They became earls, viscounts, and barons. They were no longer the scandalous upstarts their ancestors were accused of being. They were the establishment. They were a world away from the bloody politics of the Tudor court, yet they were thriving, growing their influence, and passing their genetic legacy from one noble house to another, inching ever closer, generation by generation, back to the throne that had been so cruelly denied their ancestor. For centuries, this bloodline flowed through families like the Howards, the Russells, and the Cavendishes. And then, it flowed into one of the most prominent aristocratic families in Britain, the Spencers. The Spencer family had their own long and storied history, with deep connections to the royal family for generations. They were wealthy, respected, and undeniably part of Britain's ruling class. Through a complex but traceable genealogical path, the blood of Mary Boleyn's descendants eventually merged with the Spencer line. It was a union of two powerful lineages. By the 20th century, the Spencers were one of the most important families in the country, with their ancestral home at Althorpe and a close relationship with the Windsors. They were insiders, yet that forgotten drop of Boleyn blood they carried made them, unknowingly, outsiders who would soon return to the very center of royal power. In 1981, the world watched as Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. She was presented as the perfect English Rosa, shy, innocent bride for the future king. But she was far more than that. She was a descendant of Kings Charles II and James II, bringing a flood of royal Stuart blood back into the main line. And, more importantly for our story, she was a direct descendant, through multiple lines, of that forgotten Boleyn sister, Mary. The irony is staggering. 500 years after Henry VIII executed his Boleyn queen for failing to secure his dynasty, a young woman carrying the blood of that same Boleyn family was now marrying his direct successor. She was tasked with the very same duty that Anne had failed to fulfill, to provide a male heir to the throne. The ghost of Anne Boleyn must have been smiling. The stage was set for the final act of a revenge centuries in the making. As Princess of Wales, Diana proved to be a force of nature, much like her distant ancestor, Anne. Both women were charismatic, stylish, and possessed a magnetic quality that captivated the public. Both were seen as outsiders who struggled against the rigid conformity of the royal court. And challenged the religious authority of Rome, Diana challenged the emotional sterility of the monarchy. Both women were masterful in their use of soft power, using their charm and fashion to build a powerful public image. And tragically, both were hounded by their royal husbands, cornered by a system that demanded they conform, and ultimately met devastatingly public and tragic ends. The parallels are haunting. It was as if that strong, rebellious, and determined Boleyn spirit had been dormant for centuries, only to be reawakened in Diana. She didn't just carry their blood, she seemed to carry their fire. On June 21, 1982, Diana did what Anne Boleyn could not. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Prince William, a direct heir to the throne. 2 years later, she gave birth to another son, Prince Harry. She had fulfilled her primary duty. She had provided the heir and the spare. This is the absolute heart of Anne Boleyn's revenge. Henry VIII tore his kingdom apart, beheaded his wife, and scarred his legacy, all in the desperate pursuit of a male heir to continue his line. Yet, in the end, the long-term survival of his monarchy would depend on an heir born to a woman who was a direct descendant of the Boleyn family he tried so viciously to destroy. Prince William, the future King of England, carries the DNA of both the oppressor and the oppressed. He is a Windsor, yes, but he is also, indisputably, a Boleyn. The story doesn't end with William. In 2013, he and his wife, Catherine, welcomed their first son, Prince George. Followed by Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, the line of succession is now secure for at least 3 more generations. And every single one of them, William, George, Charlotte, and Louis, carries that resilient Boleyn blood passed down through Diana. When Prince William takes the throne, he will be King William V. When his son follows him, he will be King George VII. The monarchy that Henry VIII fought to control is now, and for the foreseeable future, a monarchy whose very existence is guaranteed by the descendants of Anne Boleyn's family. Her bloodline isn't just returning to the throne, it is the throne. It is the ultimate historical irony, a quiet victory achieved not with swords or battles, but with patience, survival, and genetics. Anne Boleyn lost her head, but her family has unequivocally won the Game of Thrones. So, what would Henry VIII think? The king who valued a male heir above all else, who burned his world down to get one, would now see that the future of his crown rests entirely on the sons of a Boleyn descendant. Anne Boleyn's revenge is complete. She didn't just give England one of its greatest queens, she gave it its future kings. A 500-year-old debt has been paid, and the daughter of a disgraced queen has had the final, silent, and most definitive laugh. What do you think? Is this the ultimate historical revenge, or just a fascinating coincidence of genealogy? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as incredible as we did, please hit that like button, share this video with any history lover you know, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the hidden stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.